Close. Uh, 4 years ago, Kelly saw that many nonprofits were spinning their wheels and gouging their pocketbooks, doing fundraising and marketing the wrong way. So Kelly decided to become the professional fundraising and marketing partner nonprofits needed. Kelly founded Grit HQ, a Decatur-based agency that provides creative solutions for nonprofits and mission-focused small businesses. By working alongside nonprofits and small businesses, Kelly and the Grit HQ team help nonprofits with operations solutions, web design, fundraising, and social media management. Along with operating Grit HQ, Kelly is location independent, currently in Mexico. She really is, already asked. Owns and manages 2 Airbnb properties remotely and operates an Instagram and blog, F the Joneses, that shares her journey to design a life of freedom, growth, and authenticity, and inspires others to do the same. So welcome, Kelly.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. If everyone can just have a little bit of patience while I share my screen. And again, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to just type it in the chat box, and I am always welcome to be interrupted. Okay, if someone can confirm that they can see this. Awesome, thank you for that thumbs up, perfect. So again, today I'll be talking about 21 tools and strategies to work smarter, not harder. And again, my name is Kelly Gagnon. I am based in Decatur, Illinois, originally, and am currently in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. And typically, I'm a little nervous, I'll just be honest, I'm a little nervous. Typically, I present on marketing, fundraising, social media management, and branding. But my real passion, what drives me, is to help people, individuals, nonprofits kind of figure out how to do things better, more efficiently and effectively. So I'm excited to share some of the wisdom I've learned with you. So hopefully you can attack your day, your week, your month, your 2021 with a little bit less stress and a little bit more ownership of how you're approaching your days and your projects. There we go. So again, I'm the owner of Grit HQ, that's grithq.org. And we primarily provide nonprofit marketing. And I'm in the process of kind of not rebranding, but pivoting more to talk about leadership and mindset as it relates to being, I think, what a lot of us feel here is pseudo one-man shows, always spread too thin, and kind of how do you approach that? So if you want to check me out, I'm on Facebook, and you'll see that I've laid low, but that's because there's some big things coming in the future, and I'm trying to do things effectively myself. Okay, so before we get started, this training, in the next hour, I'm hoping that you're going to understand the 4 quadrants of time management. Yes, the quadrants of time management. Then you'll walk away with at least 3 strategies you can use to better manage your time, and then gain knowledge of some tools you can use to be more efficient with your project. So if that's what you came here for, and I know as professionals, we all feel spread a little thin, hoping to provide you some tools and mindset shifts to kind of make your life easier starting right now. Okay, in the chat box, if you can go ahead and type out, why do you feel overwhelmed? You'll see this little cloud thing a couple times, and I'm wanting you to engage. I'm gonna make you do some of the work. So when you see this, I'll ask you a question, and I mean you should type your answer. Why do you feel overwhelmed? And if you don't, that's okay, I'm jealous. I think there are a lot of people on this call that are maybe a little jealous. But why do you feel overwhelmed? If why is too difficult, what's overwhelming you right now? What is overwhelming you? I'm gonna see if I can see this chat.
Do you want me to read them, or are you going to read them?
Go ahead, you can.
Sure. So I was speedy. Oh, it's disappearing. So it's hard to say no. The other one is lots of new directives and processes in place now due to COVID-19. The next one is there's too much to do. Another person said, I always say yes to do things. Another one, too spread out, doing too much of a lot of different things when multitasking to keep up. My to-do list is too long and don't know where to start. Next one, multiple projects at one time, too many competing tasks, lots of interruptions, too many balls in the air, lots of
Okay.
responsibilities.
So
Uh,
too many interruptions, too young on that. A lot of people saying lots of responsibilities, too much, too much, too much. And a lot of the quadrants is there's always going to be too much, but what are you spending your time doing? There's always only so many hours in the day. And for those that said I can't say no or I say yes to too many things, send me an email afterwards. My first TEDx presentation was saying yes to say no and kind of what that gives you to life. And I've felt a whole new level of freedom and ownership of my time after doing that. So I should have kept that as a link in the bottom of this. But I think we all as professionals feel a little overwhelmed. And part of it is, and can I confirm with everyone that you're seeing this full box, correct?
Correct.
I'm seeing you, okay. Let me see if I can move you then. Okay, so again, I'm going through 21 strategies and tools. I'm counting into the first 4, but really, if you can approach your tasks and to-do list and all those balls in the air with a new mindset and are able to categorize things, you'll probably start to feel like you might be spending a lot of your time doing the wrong things. And when we're looking at what tasks do we have, there are things that are time sensitive or urgent, and there are things that just aren't. They're not urgent. There are also things that are important, and there are things that are not important. And I'm sure we can all agree or have been there. If we aren't there now, we were in the past. If you're one of those people that always leaves your email inbox open and is constantly doing these urgent things that are not important and responding to emails immediately because it's the easy things to do. And then guilty for me as a 20-something, I was a director at a community college. I worked like 80 hours a week and was going on the weekends to write grants because there was no time, right? I didn't have any time. And the majority of that is that I was spending my time on what I'm going to call, this is quadrant 1, quadrant. I was spending the majority of my time down here, quadrant 3, which are really distractions. Phone calls, emails, meetings that maybe I didn't need to do, but I said yes. Bosses meetings and walk-ins. So, I managed up to 30 people. They were constantly coming in and I never set good boundaries. So I probably sent like the ideal time allocation for things that are urgent but not important. It's like 15% of my time, but I structured my days, and yes, your time is in your control. I structured my days where probably 75% of a 40-hour work week is focused on that. So I really didn't have time to deal with things that were important and urgent. For you, that might be things if you are working directly with clients, that someone has a time-sensitive emergency you just found out about. Something that might not be important and urgent, but you react that way is when a client sends an email or calls you on the phone and you call them back in the next 10 minutes and stop what you're doing. That might be not urgent or urgent, but not right now, right? That could be in your 15% of time allocation. So when we're looking at how do we deal with our time that's ours, we need to really be thinking, what's the most important and is this urgent? And then structuring our days that way. The scariest thing for probably all of us on this call, or at least 80% of us on this call, is we spend the least amount of time on the things that are the most important. And that's quadrant 2 right here. So that's things that really will be what I call big picture, move the needle, maybe change your trajectory in life. So if you're constantly being reactive in tasks, you're not spending enough time. Maybe if you're really focused on fulfilling the needs of your grant, how often do you actually look at your grant and make sure you're fulfilling it? And how are you allocating your time in relation to that? If you're focused on, you have a big goal to have a new partner, what are you doing daily to work towards those goals? So the things that are the most important, that quadrant 2, that move the needle, could be things like strategic planning, things like developing new partnerships or new funding streams, or possibly implementing a new initiative to get more clients in the door to help more people, but maybe it's a big picture thing. And what we as working professionals tend to do is spend the vast majority of our time down here in quadrant 3 and quadrant 4 with things like phone calls, emails, meetings, and I know we're all guilty of it, even if we don't admit it. Sometimes life can be so overwhelming that you just need a break. So you find yourself going for, what's that one piece of adaptive equipment that I heard about, to maybe 45 minutes later, you're on this research rabbit hole, right? That maybe doesn't have any big picture utility. And you've lost 45 minutes in your day where you could have been working with pressing problems, planning towards your future, maybe even structuring out what resources are we lacking that we need to do research on, and then have something, a deliverable that you could use moving forward. So again, as we talk about the next strategies, and I'm calling this strategies 1 through 4, because we really need to identify and think of our life and our time and things that are important or not, urgent or not, and then spend our time allocation doing those things. As we continue on these next tools and strategies, always think, I'm restructuring my time to spend more time in quadrant 2, to spend more time moving the needle, to spend more time making the impact I want to make. Or if you want to get real technical, spend more time making sure we fulfill the needs of our grant. So again, if you're really feeling overwhelmed in too many tasks, cut out the quadrant 3 and quadrant 4 and focus as much on 1 and 2. And I'm going to give you some tools and strategies so that you can better do that moving forward. Okay, so my first recommendation, especially for people that are constantly jumping to different tasks. And I know for case managers, you can constantly feel that way. You're like, where did my day go? How is it already 3 o'clock? And all I've done is responded to 12 emails and dealt with whatever flooded in the door. Is to do what's called the Pomodoro method. It's Spanish for tomato. And for me, I multitask quite a bit and then get nothing done and never get those big picture move the needle things done. Or I used to be that way. And the best way to do that is just to spend 25 minutes, especially on those tasks that really overwhelm you. You're just going to, there's something called the tomato timer. If you go to on Google, you can just type tomato timer and it'll automate this for you. It's a 25-minute timer, 5-minute break. 25-minute timer, 5-minute break. There's also a couple of focus timer apps on your phone that you can use. And your goal is for 25 minutes, you're just committing to 25 minutes to avoid all distractions and focus on one task. So if you have a bunch of individuals you need to email, you are spending that time just doing that over and over and over and over again and not getting distracted by anything else. For just 25 minutes, you're focused on one task. Maybe you're overwhelmed by a quarterly report you need to send in, and it just seems like you can never get it done. You're just committing to 25 minutes focusing on one task. Then you take a 5-minute break, go back to it, 5-minute break, go back to it. And this is a way to kind of focus in bite-sized pieces, but this also means you are closing all of the windows, you are closing your email, you are turning your phone on silent, and you're entirely deeply focused on one thing. It's especially important when you're working on those quadrant 2, those difficult things, looking at strategic things. But 25 minutes, when you look at it for research for your brain, is like the maximum amount of time you should be spending before taking a little break. Okay, and then time blocking. So this is actually, and you can see, where are you guys right now? You see I had an I'm on the Farmer Veteran Coalition of Illinois board. We had an executive meeting right before this. You can see this is my day. You can all creep a little bit on my life. But I've time blocked out my entire day, and I am nerdy enough that it's also color coded. So my green ones are to move the needle. Anything in red or purple is to find, or red or pink is to find balance. Purple are kind of new or floating tasks. You can see I finished this PowerPoint today. I had a couple things I wanted to add during that time. And I time block out my day so the day does not get away from me. What this also does is it makes sure that the things I need to do to move the needle are on there. Does anyone else's calendar kind of look like this? Go ahead and comment in the chat box. Yes, mine looks like this. If you want to screenshot into this, go ahead. Does anybody else have a calendar that looks like this?
We're getting yeses sometimes,
Okay.
not even close.
Not even close. So the biggest thing this does, on times when you have too much to do, even if you're not blocking out your full, I mean, you can see I'm a little bit much, right? I had blocked out from 7:30 or from 6:30 this morning. So that might be a little bit much for you. But if you know you have 3 things to do that need to get done that day, instead of it being 4 o'clock and you're like, oh no, I have 3 hours worth of work still to do and I've been working all day, it's that you just block out a couple hours to get that task done. And just send, and like, I'm big on email zero. Like if your email is starting to get overwhelming and there's people that have thousands of unread emails, drives me crazy. But if you're big on that, to get to email zero, get you somewhere and you can't ever focus, like just block out 2 hours on your day, treat it like a meeting. You need to really, your tasks, the things you have to do, you own your time. That has more responsibility than allowing others to demand your time, right? So block out just at least 3 things on your day, those 3 tasks you know you want to do. Put it in your calendar, commit to the time you're going to do it, treat it like a meeting, use the Pomodoro method focus timer, and focus. And often we feel very overwhelmed. Again, I went from working 80 hours a week in my earlier in my professional career to learning some of these very basic tasks, and I get more done in half the time just by being proactive instead of reactive with my time. And when you look at the executives that are most professional at the highest level of Fortune 500 companies, like they're doing similar things. They are owning their time and deciding how to allocate it, not letting other people come and interrupt constantly.
So Kelly, there was one question. How much time do you spend time blocking?
So mine's automated. So let's see. So good question. And I'll talk a little bit about routine. I bet I spend 10 minutes a week focusing on time blocking, and then I'm just like moving it around the morning before. Notice where it says morning routine at the top. I might move some things around that day if something else pops up. Like I didn't have this, that's in purple. I didn't have the finished PowerPoint done. So this morning I blocked in, moved stuff around, bumped something to tomorrow. Again, it might sound like, oh, you're spending more time, but that preparation and claiming to own your tasks and your time is going to be life-changing. So even if you're spending 15 minutes a day, you're probably going to save at least a couple hours a week. Say no to things you would otherwise say yes, for allowing other people to interrupt your time for 30 minutes chatting. So I turn my phone on silent during certain times and then turn it back on. And I'll talk a little bit. Any other questions there?
There is one question from Beverly. I find that things take much longer than I expect on projects, especially creative projects. Do you have suggestions?
Yeah, I think, and I'll talk about with batching a little bit, but especially with creative projects, like it's difficult to figure out what complete is. I do recommend blocking out full blocks of chunks of time, especially later on the week if it's a creative project and you feel like it's relief to try it. So notice like right here, when you look at my 2 mornings of like, this is when I'm going to be doing these things. I'm taking big chunks of time to do creative things and then do the Pomodoro method, take a break, because often we get less focused the further we're working on creative projects. Like 2 hours in, we're like, oh, I forgot we were doing that. And I've put 75 different pictures. But do the 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, and block out, I would say, at least 3 hours to do a creative project. And then say no to any other interruptions during that time. Okay. And then so this is maybe related to creative projects, but I would claim, especially for people that have very detail-oriented things to do, if you're doing like a site visit report or wrapping up case files that were maybe more than a year old, instead of doing those here and there, to batch your work as much as possible. So this can be anything from redundant tasks to things that are entirely overwhelming, but do all of one type of thing all at one time. So and I would say like once a week. So I have a lot of things, speaking of time blocking, that are repeated weekly tasks on my calendar. And I never hold in my head, oh yeah, I need to do that. Oh, I should probably do that. Oh, I'm going to write it on my to-do list 20 days in a row and not actually do it. But to go ahead and decide, I'm going to call all the clients that I haven't talked to the last 3 months all in one morning and call, and then figure out how to act. And then you're probably going to get more. Again, this is about efficiency. You're going to get more done than you would do if you were to sprinkle that out. For creative projects, this is especially important. Instead of being like, oh, this social media post, I'm going to go put that up. Oh yeah, this social media post, I'm going to, instead of being reactive, to go ahead and block out. I think even saw on my calendar, we are scheduling out client work once a week for 2 weeks straight, and to kind of batch things a little bit more, so you're being proactive and reducing the chaos of multitasking. I'm a millennial, and we like to brag about how multitasking is so great and we get more done, but it's just, when you look at science, it's just not true that multitasking, you get more done. The more you're deeply focused for an amount of time, the more productive overall you're going to be. And then you'll get, hopefully, more hours in the day open back up. Okay, right now, really quickly, if you could type in, is there something you already do that you batch in your current role? You're like, oh, I do currently batch that work. I just didn't know I did it.
So we have calendar updates, checking emails, social media posts, monthly calls, client follow-up calls, timesheets. Here's a question if you want to take it. When working for multiple organizations at one time, how does one effectively batch?
The same way you would if you were working for, the same way. I think you're always going to go back to that quadrant of what's going to move the needle. Is it something that needs to be done right now or not? Is it going to move the needle or not? But repeated tasks where you're allocating the same amount of time each week is always going to be better. Get into a routine or a habit as opposed to being reactive. And just because someone says they need something now doesn't mean you have to do it now. And I think, I think the more, and I'm a natural people pleaser, the more we train our brain to not just jump to what other people say is important, the better it is. And the more we're going to be able to be productive human beings. Okay, so this is probably the most controversial recommendation, especially for people that are client or community facing. We like to be accessible. And I know right now during COVID times what accessibility looks like is a little bit different, but we like to pride ourselves that when someone calls, we pick up the phone. When someone emails, we immediately email back. But whenever you're doing deep work, and again, you can schedule in open time to do these things, but instead of constantly having your email open and responding and checking, and the majority of people, even if your email's open, you're only responding immediately to the ones you want to, right? Let's be honest. But instead of checking your email constantly throughout the day, I recommend highly that you make it a part of your routine. And if you feel like you're client facing or community facing, want to immediately seem accessible, nobody knows you're not in meetings. Like nobody knows you're not constantly in meetings. I would recommend to block out 3 25-minute times during the day to respond. And then your mind focus on what you're doing, and then focus on the email, and then focus on what you're doing, and then focus on the email, instead of constantly being all the places and not getting anything done. So schedule 3 times a day maximum to check your email. Turn your phone on silent while working on other tasks, especially quadrant 2 tasks. Even if you feel like you can't turn your phone on silent just because it rings, you don't have to answer it immediately. Even if you're client facing, you still have to get your big tasks done. And the more other people take your time, the less you're going to be able to do the big picture things to, in the end, serve individuals. Again, like this is just if you could 25 minutes on and then respond to email and phone if you feel like you need to be accessible right away. But if you have work that needs to be done, the more you're reacting to phone calls or emails, the less you'll be able to do big picture things. And then close all windows and turn off all alerts when doing work, especially quadrant number 2 work. Close all windows and turn off all alerts. If you have notifications on your phone that are constantly distracting you, I highly recommend going into your phone settings and only keeping the notifications you need on your phone. Okay. make decisions that matter. Follow routine for the rest. Make decisions that matter. Follow routine for the rest. What work routines, again, I want you to comment, what work routines do you have that allow you to create more free time during your day? What work routines do you have that allow you to create more free time during your day? These could be,
No, I don't see anything yet.
no, see, these could be, I know when I was a paper pencil person, at the end of every workday, I would put on a Post-it note, my Post-it notes everywhere. I'd put like the 3 things I know I need to get done on my computer screen, so that when I walked in the next day, I would remember these 3 things. And every day before I left, for me, it was like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. Before I left, I'd have those 3 things I had to get done the next day on a Post-it. That little routine made it so I wasn't floating around during my day, and then 2 o'clock happened, and I'm like, oh no, I had to get that report done.
So let's see, somebody wrote minimizing distractions. Another one says that's why we're here. That's why we're watching you, because they don't have any routines. Another person said they use Post-it notes too.
Okay.
And
So, yeah.
oh, there's one more. It says, I do have a to-do list laying on my computer, and if something comes up that I can't forget, I put it there and put it on my calendar later.
Oh, that's good. So if people are feeling overwhelmed, one of the, and I do this a lot, I love working. I get really excited for Mondays. My computer died a couple weeks ago, so I've had some issues, but like I get really excited for Mondays, and sometimes Sundays I feel overwhelmed with all the different tasks and different organizations or different clients or people you need to fill. And I will do what's called a brain dump. So you set a timer for 3 minutes. So this is a routine I follow almost like every Sunday. Set a timer for 3 minutes. Literally write down everything that's in my head that I think needs to be done that week. And then I go, what are the top three tasks? Cross them off, pull from that list. What are the easiest 3 tasks? Write them down. And what are my next 3 tasks? And then you have 9 things. So you just went from, I don't know, a list of, really it wasn't much more than 20 things maybe, but it felt so overwhelming in my head, right? So overwhelming in my head. So then I wrote them down, and I did like the most important 3, the easiest 3, the next 3. And I probably just from doing that little routine, like almost weekly, am more productive than I would have been in a week otherwise, because I knew where my priorities were and then I was acting towards them. One of my biggest recommendations, so this, I don't remember exactly who said it, but I consume a lot of content from business productivity people. And this is like the biggest thing. I mean, why does Steve Jobs have the same clothes every day? I mean, you look at, especially in the Silicon Valley tech space, like there's so many things. Like I eat the same food, I wear the same clothes, I wake up at the same time. So my brain isn't filled with what time do I need to wake up? What do I need to wear? All that is automated in routine, that I have so much space to make these big picture for a lot of high level decisions, because I'm following routine for the things that don't matter to me. And we like to fill our days deciding, what should we do next? How should we, blah, blah, blah. Should I answer this phone or not? 90% of the time we're answering the phone. But to follow a routine, I would highly recommend. So simple things, especially if you're work from home right now, and especially if you're working from home right now, simple things such as eating at the same time every day, and then getting in a routine. So this is more than just scheduling out, getting into a routine when it comes to checking and responding to email. The worst routine, do not do this. The worst routine, and my guess is 70% of people on this call are doing this right now. The worst routine is to go into the office and then for the first hour of your day, respond to emails. Chances are the first hour of your day are the least people trying to claim your time, least client calls, least coworker calls, least super time sensitive things that need to be done right now. And so if you're spending the first hour, and it's most working professionals routines that haven't really thought about it, you get in, you open up your email. If you're spending that first hour or first hour and a half, you're taking up what's probably the most easiest to guard time. That first hour of your working day is the easiest to guard, the least people, and spending on something that's not time sensitive and not moving the needle forward at all. So my biggest recommendation, and again, I said I put those 3 things on a Post-it note at the end of every day that are like big picture, move the needle stuff, or the things that are going to make the most impact on who I'm serving. And maybe the tasks I least want to do, and I'm going to, for the first hour or hour and a half of the day, do those things. And then maybe around whenever my brain starts to feel exhausted, maybe I've done the Pomodoro method 4 times. I'm like 2.5 hours into my workday. Then I open up my email, and then it's 10:30, 11 o'clock, maybe, and then the responding emails is relaxation. So what you're doing is you're not using your focus and brain power towards responding to emails, which are kind of easy, low-level tasks for most people, right? That's not exhausting. It's exhausting if you don't deal with it. But you're spending that morning time and that routine of come in and get the biggest picture thing when your mind is the freshest on the right things, instead of wasting that time responding to email. And again, I'm just guessing 70%. So of people on this call right now are going in, open up their email, responding to a few things, reading through. You're still spending 20 or 30 minutes, even if you're just reading through on that, where if you waited a couple hours, you could get some big things done before you open up your email. And then finally, and for me, I think you can already understand it's morning for me, do the most important things at your most productive time. So really, this is a lot of self-assessment. You need to understand, when are you most productive? And that's when you need to block out time in your calendar, in your day. If you're working from home, like, make sure that your kids are fully occupied for those 2 hours, where you're doing the most important thing at your most productive time. So often maybe you're waiting to do your notes from site visits until the end of the day, and then you're getting interrupted, and then it's taking 3 hours, where if you just block that off at the right time, you could maybe knock that out in like 30 or 45 minutes, because you're constantly doing it when you don't feel productive and at the wrong time, that you're not having the same impact you would. Okay, so again, easy during COVID times, eat at the same time every day, get in a routine of checking and responding to emails, and then most important things at most important times. That's again the opposite. And I told you I was going in on the weekends to work on grants all the time. And those were, life-changing for an organization to double the impact and ability to serve. And I was waiting to do that until outside of really work hours, because I felt like I needed to spend my time doing that busy work of responding and reacting on the quadrant 3 and 4 stuff. So don't be me at 29.
So there's two comments on that, Kelly. One was, I'm on call 2 days a week and I'm expected to be available to respond to calls and emails. I never know when the contacts will come or what questions or issues people will be bringing. It's really hard to plan those days. And then the other one says, our days can be really different day to day. Full day, a farm visits one day, out doing other things for work or personal another day, and then office day. Do you have suggestions?
Yeah, I think it goes back to I'll take the second question first, but follow a routine instead of figuring out when does this work for farm visits? Say I can potentially do farm visits on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons and Friday all day. And even if you're free on Mondays and Wednesdays, and there's nothing on your calendar, you need to block out that time for when you need to get work done. So the more you you own your time, especially if you're doing all those different things, is to, for me, we only do client meetings on certain days. And even though if you look, not this week, but if you look next week, Wednesday and Thursday are probably wide open. I'm not going to say, well, it kind of works for you and kind of works for me. I can do Wednesday, because then my mind won't be in the right place. I'll never have the big time to get those 3-hour chunks of creative things done. So yeah, especially if you're lots of different places and it could look differently, that's when you need to adopt the mindset I'm talking about right now. Instead of allowing your life to look totally differently, schedule what you want it to look like that works for you. As far as on call, so maybe don't try to force. It depends what on call looks like, but don't try to force getting those big picture tier 2 or the quadrant 2 things done at the same time you're on call. So maybe those are times where you need to focus on, I'm on call on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday afternoons, and I have to immediately pick up the phone or email. That's probably not the same time you want to be working on a grant, scheduling out some things that are difficult for you that you really need to focus on. You probably need to forgive yourself on those days, but then guard your other time to do those other things, if that makes sense. So again, it's the mindset, which is scary. It's scary for us. Is like, you own your time. You need to say no. You need to guard your time to do your task. And managers understand if you speak that way. We just don't want to advocate that we own our own time. This is a mindset thing on us, like 80% of the time, 20% of the time, it's expectations put on us. 80% of the time, it's us not advocating to guard our time. Any other questions related to that? Or did I not answer your question?
I think you got them all. I don't see any new ones in the chat.
Okay. Okay, and then this, especially for AgrAbility programs, if I could shake all of them and be like, what are you doing? I know a lot of you have client management systems, which are great. Some of them are still in access, that's less great. But in terms of, you have a lot of people with a lot of different hats and lots of different places doing lots of different things. And everything's happening via phone, via text message, via email. And I know different states are different, but the more things can be automated, so you're not using your brain power on these little, what's the next step? Oh, this client got lost here, and I thought you were doing this. So the more things can be automated in terms of what should be done at what stage. And this can be through project management systems, which is what I'm going to lecture about next. This can be done through project management systems, checklists, calendar reminders, but to automate things as much as possible. So if you went to a farm visit or you send a quality of life survey, and then you just schedule a farm visit, maybe even if you're not doing a project management system, and even if you have checklists, go ahead and put in your calendar that you need to follow up with that client if you hadn't heard back in 2 weeks, right? So those little things, like instead of keeping in your head, oh, I need to follow up with that person, I sent them and we never seen it back, like either set a calendar reminder, have it on a checklist that you look through everything once a week. I know a few states have just like folders with checklists on them, especially for client-facing things. But I'm going to really push that everyone should have a project management system. And this is not just for client-facing things, it's also for marketing, it's also for fundraising, but one central place where everyone is communicating and everyone can see what other people are doing, and you can assign tasks to others in a very systematic way, and also remember the routine, things that are automated will just show up again and again and again and again. Now, again, for project management systems, it's probably not going to qualify for HIPAA, so you're not going to be able to store all the documents there that you have with clients, but you can still follow through. Every time you get a new client, these are the things you need to do. This is when you need to follow up. And let's say Maine has a new client, they just had their first farm visit, and 3 different people are supposed to do 3 different things related to that client. Everything is assigned and automated outside of 70 different emails, and everyone can see what everyone else is doing. If you haven't used them before, you might sound like this language is a foreign concept, but it's really life-changing. It's all in one place. It's not 20 emails back and forth. And especially with so many people that wear so many different hats, project management systems are the way. Definitely the future, when you look at larger companies, they're using it for a reason. It's work. A lot of people use like Microsoft Teams plus Slack for like chat communication. And then they also have an overarching project management system. So I'm going to tell you about my 2 favorite project management systems for organizations of your size. And again, I'm talking specifically for like state AgrAbility projects. We were a team of 7 and all over the world. And it got to place, how you're having all these internal emails where everything was just automated, repeat tasks, repeating, reviewing. So for example, for social media, let's say Megan would schedule out social media for 2 weeks. And as soon as she clicked, yes, I did it, then it would assign to me, review the schedule of social media tasks for 2 weeks. And then as soon as I clicked check, Megan would get schedule out social media for 2 weeks. And that was all automated. So the same can be done with like client files. So first site visit, and then this person does this, that once you like have repeat tasks, it all automatically gets assigned and everyone can see who's doing what, and you can all ask questions here instead of things getting lost in your email inboxes with text messages and, oh, that person stopped by and I kind of forget what they said. This is one central place where all of your activities are happening. Now, for AgrAbility projects, I would say any nonprofit with less than $500,000 operating budget, Asana is the first project management system I would do. And I think you should have like client action steps in there. You should have client facing action steps, communication action steps. Anytime you have a small project, even like we did the farm progress show, right? And there were 3 of us involved in the health and safety tent for the farm progress show. And we all find out little tasks. Oh, follow up with this person. And like the Excel spreadsheet was saved in there and everything's all in one place. So if instead of me having to email Megan and say, oh, what happened with that? I can just get into Asana, look at all of her notes, see where everything is, see what's happened. And it's not, that would probably like sending emails back and forth. But instead I can just see everything she's done. It even is. And it's just, for organizations your size, life changing and being proactive and collaborative, especially if you're spread throughout the entire state and you're having to do less. So Asana, and again, I know this is kind of a foreign language. I hope you can hear my passion and everyone should be doing this. But in terms of not only that, but a lot of the organizations with lots of leaders that are maybe older or have been there a while, you don't want your history to get lost because one person leaves. So I'm big on the operate your organization as if you were to get hit by a bus tomorrow, your organization can continue and people will know what you're doing. Project management systems are a great way to have a paper trail of all the things and everything is centrally shared. Now, if you're associated with a land grant or university, you might have, oh, we have OneDrive. Oh, we have, that's just where things are stored. That's not a way to collaborate and make, like, those are different things. This, again, is a collaboration tool, and then you're able to assign things to others. So Asana is the first one, and then Trello is the second one. And these are called project management systems. They are about proactively, not reactively communicating. And it's just, if you guys are thinking about getting one, I would more than welcome. I would definitely sit there and talk to you guys for free to kind of walk through what makes the most sense for you. These are all free software. So of organizations your size, it's entirely free. Again, it has to be used to work. So it does require buy-in from the people that are using it. But even if a portion of your, like, oh, we're just gonna use it for marketing right now, and the 2 of us and our intern are okay with that. Or we're gonna trial it here. But if people are using project management systems well, never heard of anyone going back to, no, email's better, or just texting and kind of forgetting half the things and writing notes on each other's desks is better. It's a great way. And then again, if you're doing work, you can just look at this to see what you need to do that day and see what people are assigning you if you have a boss, and you don't have to worry about trying to figure out what's happening or scrolling through your emails. So again, I told you, what?
Oh, there's a quick question. So could you repeat the Trello one, the project management tool number 2?
Yeah, it's called Trello. And the biggest difference is, it's, if you can see here, Trello will feel very similar to using Post-it notes. And I personally, I've used Trello with one organization. I prefer Asana, and that's what we use internally with Grit HQ, and what a few website designers I've worked with use. But it just depends how your brain works. These are equally used, so I don't want to push one over the other. You know, I think it's just how people's brains work, which is better. But yeah, both will. I mean, you can even see, like, these are all different people collaborating on things with dates and times, and then drop downs of all the information. So
Thank you.
uh-huh.
Oh, wait, one more question. Can you talk about how Slack may be different?
Yeah, so Slack is mainly just has chat features and a little bit more, and is almost doing more of what I say, hey, don't do. I mean, we can get on and have conversations and share things easier. I think it goes like email is here, email, texting, inefficient communication is here. Slack is a little bit better because people are communicating more bite-sized pieces, but can feel like you have to react immediately. And then Trello, Asana is you can assign dates and times of when things even pop up. So with both of these, like I can have a repeated task to schedule out social media that just shows up every Monday at deadline of 2 p.m. every Monday on my task when I go in to see what's looking that day. I mean, it's all, they just kind of function. Slack is for communication only. This you can think of as your virtual to-do list. And if you get on and you're using it, it's telling you what you should be doing every day. You can set repeat tasks so that kind of nothing falls through. After meetings, so I still do this, like after board meetings, anything that I know I have to do, instead of writing it down and then forgetting that piece of paper or what page is on my spiral notebook and what did I commit to doing or where's that agenda in my email, I will spend 10 minutes assigning that and then having, like, I'll put, oh yeah, I said that I would schedule out a welcome series for the Farmer Veteran Coalition emails. And I don't really want to do that now. I don't think we're going to do that for 2 weeks. So I will assign it to me for like 2 weeks from Tuesday. And I'm not even going to think about it until it pops up on my calendar for 2 weeks from Tuesday. And oh yeah, I also said I'd follow up with these 3 people. Well, I'm probably going to do that Tuesday because I block out time to make phone calls and email. And so I'm assigning it and it's no longer in my head. I'm no longer going to find that piece of paper reactively. It'll just pop up for telling me to do those things on the day that it's scheduled.
And then one more question, which I actually had also, is do these project management tools work between different agencies? So somebody works for the land grant, somebody works for the nonprofit?
Yeah, so it's just all based, and that's one of the, and I know I have a lot of struggles working with universities too, where I don't have access to all the things. This is what whoever.edu, .org, .com, whatever the email is, you just have an email invitation and then you have access to it. Yeah, and it's all web-based. They're both, these two are free. I think they have paid levels, but for what you are looking for at the volume, if you're talking about your AgrAbility project specifically, yeah, but it's, I think if you're looking at sustainability and trying to move your organization forward, and you, especially if you've like cycles of people coming in and out, this is the best way to communicate. Any other questions related to that? No.
I think you're good.
Okay, so again, I'm going to go back to that very first slide. But the biggest thing that will help you become more efficient and effective and tools and strategies for using your time better, it's not how to allocate for less work. It's not, maybe we like learn to say no, but it's about how, with the time you do have, how do you spend it doing the right things better? And the 4 quadrants of time management and focusing on spending our time and productivity and moving the needle tasks is the most important thing. We spend so much time in quadrants 3 and 4 that we don't have any time left. So the more we can focus on blocking our time and being productive towards the future and not just reacting to what other people want to claim our time, the better. And then I'm going to have you do one final thing and then I'll open it up for questions. Okay, in the chat box, go ahead and type 3 of the best tips you'll adopt as you move forward in your working life. I really hope from this, I know it's a little overwhelming and abstract, but what are 3 things that you're like, that thing Kelly said really does make sense. Maybe I should do that. And go ahead and type those in the chat box. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so that I can see what you're thinking. But again, my strategy 21, the last one is take action. Go ahead and tell me, what are 3 the best tips you'd like to adopt? You're like, oh, that might work for me. Okay. I'm scrolling to the bottom of the chat screen. Okay, 25-minute timer, 3 email checks per day. Don't do email first thing. Okay. Time quadrant, Asana, avoid distractions, scheduling. I am going to follow up with managers on project management email. Definitely Pomodoro. Yes, Pomodoro. So it's just 25 minutes. It's method, no emails first hour of the day. I like the idea of using the management system. I have a hard time getting people to respond to my emails and do what I ask. Maybe the system, yes. And the if you have people for the project management systems, they're especially non-responsive. That check emails later in the day. That are, if you people in project management systems that are especially non-responsive, you can force them to have email alerts. Anytime you assign something to it, it's also routines, most important thing in the morning, block schedule, check out Asana. Set up email time and block time for calls. Stop at noon and walk or dance, try to work on a task from beginning to end, avoid distractions, avoid email first thing, use Asana. Yay! I think that like a lot of the people are saying, and they prep us on, a lot of people are saying the avoid email first thing. It's funny once you learn that, and then you feel so productive by like 9:30 or 10, where if you're doing email first thing, you're just maybe starting to get into your day. Okay, I'm jumping back a little bit. These work in our agency. Okay, tomato timer. Yes, time quadrant. Asana. Okay, well, it sounds like hopefully a lot of the tips and tricks help. Okay, go ahead and continue typing because I can see from all the people on the call that not everyone has typed theirs in yet, and I can tell. So, so go ahead and continue typing. But while we're doing that, we can go ahead and open it up for questions. Is it okay that people turn themselves off mute to ask a question? Or type in the inbox only?
That's a test question.
Yeah, that's fine. However you want to do it. People can unmute and talk if they want.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, hop on. No one, you're all productivity masterminds.
I put one in there. You said quadrant 3 is about communicating, emails, phone calls, those kind of things. But quadrant 2 is about building relationships. But there seems to be a strong overlap. When you talk to people on the phone, you're building relationships or via email. So how do you sort that?
So, I mean, I would just reflection, like what is the purpose of the email or response? The majority of email or phone calls are probably not really relationship building towards your mission or vision, right? It might be like, oh yeah, we're building relationships, but like, remember the quadrant 2 is all about things that move the needle. And that means like towards your strategic plan, towards what the mission or vision of your organization is, not just like, I like old school relationship building, right? Like, so I would sort it that way. And if it's really like intentional communication towards an end related to your big picture goals, then that can be quadrant 2. But that still maybe doesn't mean you do it right now. Does that help?
I have a question regarding your time blocks that you have on your calendar versus your Asana project management. And are you using a calendar like Outlook for your time blocking, or is that part of Asana also?
Yeah, so you can do it either way, and it is, Ned, I hate this thing, like personal preference. I tend to be a list person, so I will look at Asana and still block it out on my calendar. I know a lot of people, because you can do lists with deadlines during the day, and it'll look like a calendar. That's built into Asana. I'm not sure about Trello, but that's built into Asana too. I tend to maybe, people ask how much time I want to make sure it works and then I'll follow through. So I do go ahead and put it on a Google Calendar. That also helps me really feel like I'm doing enough action to get in my long-term memory of what I'm doing that day. Or short-term.
And then somebody said, for someone who is time management impaired, seriously impaired, are there first steps that you would emphasize over others?
Yes, I think what I said was my first thing, though, like write the 3 things you need to do first and put it on your calendar. And I think if you're time management impaired, like don't commit to achieving more than 2 or 3 things each day. And then before you touch anything else, do those, at least 2 of the 3, like achieve something, get it done. A lot of time management impaired people, it's because we're always reacting to others, right? It's not that we're not really productive, it's that we're always reacting to others, so we're not moving the needle at all. So I would say if your workday starts at 8, don't touch your email until 10, don't check your voicemail until 10, and spend those first 2 hours doing the things in your Post-it note you don't need to get done that day. But keep it simple. Yeah, if you're time management impaired, keep it simple.
So you have about 4 minutes left. So everybody
Okay.
get their questions in. And if you don't see in the chat box before you leave today, please fill out the evaluation questions, and Tess posted it in the chat link if everybody could follow up with that also.
If I'm guessing right, you would consider learning how to use Asana a quadrant 2 activity.
Yeah, I think so. I think that could be, especially if your organization has issues with communication, then it's definitely moving the needle, right? So spending some time doing that. Yeah, anything professional development towards being more efficient. I think spending 3 hours even once a week, even if people are part-time, 3 hours once a week, and then you're communicating so much more efficiently and effectively, like that's going to benefit your organization, your clients, your mental health.
So Kelly, learning to use another program or something sounds scary, and helping everybody in the organization also know how to use it sounds scary. Are there places or ways to get help with a team to learn how to use something like Asana?
Yeah, so I mean, there are lots of YouTube videos that you can watch as a group and have a little, again, this takes up time, and anything that moves the needle is a time commitment, right? But we don't want to do it. We don't want to do the quadrant 2 stuff. We want to just continue feeling productive. So my recommendation, especially if you have people that already aren't very tech savvy at all, is to start with a cohort of maybe your most tech savvy. So if, you and 2 other people are more tech savvy than others, then just start with those 3 people doing like, oh, we're going to use this to do marketing and manage our marketing, or we're going to use this, and just trial that before you just go all out and say we're switching to it. Just remember, anything new takes time, but if we keep doing things the old way forever and ever and ever, like, we're going to become obsolete.
And my very last comment, Kelly, in Northern Michigan, Asana is where you go to steam yourself.
What a funny comment.
Boo. Okay, there's one more question. After completing a big project, I feel drained, like I need a break or time off and spin my wheels for a day or 2. Do you have suggestions?
Spin your wheels for a day or 2, honestly. Like, there's a reason you feel that way. Reward yourself with something fun. Yeah, take a breath. I mean, it's a bigger version of that Pomodoro method, right? 27. If you're knocking out a big grant, like, take a day off. Take a day off, or just do those things that are, then spend the next day researching and responding to emails. Like, give yourself that mental space to not be productive.
Somebody says they think there's an Asana for dummies, video for dummies. You can find anything
Sure,
on YouTube.
Yeah, anything. And again, if you guys are if you're thinking you need buy-in, feel free to shoot me an email. I will put it here. You saw my calendar this week, so it won't be that. But if you talk and you're really like, this is part of our future, don't do it this week. But if you really talked and done the work, right, to like you as an organization decide, I'm more than willing to set up a 25-minute free phone or video call with your organization if you do have buy-in, to talk about why and what makes the most sense for you.
Thank you, Kelly. That was wonderful. I have a big to-do list now. So everybody, please remember to fill out the evaluation questions at the link in the chat box. And everybody has Kelly's email, kelly@grithq.com.